Welcome to this portion of the Bumpers Accelerator called The Gap. Now, if you know me, you know that I want to handle the main thing, keep the main thing, and focus on what really matters. And the foundation of the entire Bumpers framework and achieving everything you want to achieve, avoiding the gutter, all that stuff we always talk about, achieving your maximum productivity, your profit, quality of life, starts with acknowledging and understanding the gap. And those are introduced to me in two different ways, one more recent than the other. There is the intention-intervention gap, which I adopted from Dr. Trevor Cashy, good friend of mine, business partner, brilliant guy. I think he got his PhD when he was 23. Smart dude. And another really smart guy, Dan Nicholson, uses a very similar concept called espoused values versus values in action. And what we need to do is we identify the gap between these things. So the intention-intervention gap is the gap between what you know or think you should be doing and what you're actually doing consistently. Okay, so if you just consume content, self-help, courses, information, and you learn more about what you should be doing, but you do not change your behavior, the gap gets wider. What you intend to do and what is actually happening in real life consistently is different. So we need to close that gap. That may be, I know I need to exercise every day. Until you're exercising every day, nothing else matters. So if you go down this rabbit hole of I need to exercise every day and I need to do this kind of exercise and I need to do it with this kind of equipment, you're widening the gap before ever changing your behavior to get you closer to behaving in a way that you would need to behave to get the result that you want. Okay? So it's the intention-intervention gap. There's also a gap between your espoused values and your actual values, meaning if you are preaching that you should be kind to everybody, and then in real life, you're kind of a dickhead to waiters and waitresses, right? There's a gap in your espoused values and your actual values. It's the gap between what you say you value and what your behaviors actually dictate that you do value. We need to be aware of this gap. I'm going to show you how to consistently close both of them, okay? If we cannot do this, nothing else matters. We need to start with the concept of system reliability. You may have heard me talk about this. I'm going to breeze over it real quick because simplicity is key here. Very, very simple concept. That the reliability of an entire system is a product of the reliability of all the separate components or technology of the system. Right? This is a concept from ecology. I strongly suggest you study ecology in depth. So it stands to reason that more complication leads to less reliability, right? And I'll show you what I mean by that. And that removing the least reliable components are the most important or highest leverage thing to change or modify. So because a product, we're talking multiplication, right? Anything times zero is zero. So you could have the most reliable system. Let's say your light switch works, the electrical wires work, but the light bulb doesn't, right? It doesn't matter how reliable the light switch is or the electrical wires. If you got a zero in the system as a whole won't work. Similarly, if you got a one in the system or a low percentage performer, the reliability that it will work is far lesser. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. The more components you have in a system, the less reliable it is, and the lowest performing components decrease the reliability the most. So, for example, I'm going to show you some math really, really quick. 0.9, it's 90%. If 90% of the time you flip the light switch, right? And 90% of the time you actually paid your electric bill, 81% of the time the current will be sent to where it needs to go. Okay? So reliability. 90% component added to a 90% reliable component has an 81% chance that this system does exactly what we expect it to do. That's okay, because most technology is almost perfect. Nothing's perfect, so it might be 0.999999. Nothing is perfect. But look what happens when we add another equally reliable component. 90% times 90% times 90% is 72%. So even though we added the component of equal reliability, the total reliability of the system as a whole actually decreased. Okay, it's really, really important. This is why we don't add stuff unless the existing things are already nearly perfectly reliable. Right? And we add another one, 0.9 times 0.9 times 0.9, times 0.9, add another component, right? We get 63% system reliability. So most of this stuff is 99%, right? 99.99999%. Technology is, by and large, extremely reliable. That's why we get upset when our computer doesn't work, because we expect it to be reliable. But every component we add decreases the reliability that we're going to get the exact outcome we want. Okay, it's not to say that we won't make progress. It's to say to get the exact outcome reliably that we want. The more components we add, the less reliable the system. That is step one, right? Tech is incredibly reliable. Humans are not. We know that. We got to accept that we're not super reliable. Nowhere near compared to tech. So let's look at the same system, the same reliability concept, and make some assumptions about human behavior. And that assumption is that humans are not super consistent or reliable. So we could take this, let's say this whole system is 90%. The technology, the program, the plan, whatever it is that is not human behavior is 90% reliable, right? But we only flip the switch 60% of the time we're supposed to. We only show up to the gym 60% of the time we're supposed to. We only go live on Facebook 60% of the time we're supposed to. So maybe we buy a program about going live on Facebook to get a client, and we do it 60% of the time. So only 60% of the time do we show up and do exactly what we are supposed to do. There's a 54% chance that we get the outcome that was expected. It's not very good, right? Behavior is the limiting factor. So even if we could improve this program, this tech, this idea, exercise program, business program, blueprint, roadmap, actual tech, our car starts all the time, stuff like that. Even if we could make it 100% reliable, so even if we changed the program, if we changed the plan, if we changed what technology we use, it can still only, at best, in a perfect world, be 60% reliable, because our behavior is the limiting factor. So you can see how we might be changing diet plans, we might be changing exercise plans, we might be changing business plans, we might be swapping coaches. And the reality is we can't gauge the efficacy of this technology or this program because it is not the limiting factor, right? Cool. So let that sink in for a minute. I'm going to show you how to fix it. Now back to the original. If we improve the behavior by the same percentage point, okay, because it's the lowest common denominator here, so the lowest hanging fruit. If we improve behavior and we have 90% reliable tech and 70% reliable human behavior, we have a greater outcome. Right? We have a greater outcome here than if we just improve the tech. So I'm telling you right now, human behavior is always, always, always the weakest link. Exercise program, for example, unless you show up at the exact time you're supposed to and do every single set and every single rep with the exact intensity 100% of the time, you cannot gauge the efficacy of the program in isolation. It may not be the right program for you, but it's not an ineffective program. It is your behavior that is ineffective. It's really, really important. Okay, so the thing that needs to change before we can gauge the efficacy of any new program, tech or idea, is our own behavior. So generally what we have is tech, right? Exercise programs, business plans, cars, computers, electricity is between 90 and 99.9999999% reliable. Almost every time you flip on the switch, the light turns on, right? And if it doesn't, it's because the human behavior, you forgot to change the bulb. So tech is incredibly reliable. Programs, offers, intellectual property that's been codified is incredibly reliable compared to human behavior, which is like 5 to 40% reliable at best. It really is. If you think about, I followed that diet, and you actually do the math, right? 5 days out of 7. That's not very good math, right? That's far less reliable than anything on the tech side. And then it's how far off did you, if you're supposed to eat 2,000 calories and you ate 5,000, you're actually many percentage points off of being reliable. So it's the behavior. So what we're doing, right, is we get a plan. It is between 90 and 99% reliable. And we don't change our behavior, so we start swapping out plans. New plan, and we never actually modify the thing that we need to modify to get the outcome that we are looking to get, which is our own behavior. So I'm going to show you how to keep the main thing, and actually modify your behavior to match the plan. And then only when you've modified your behavior to match the plan can you change the plan and gauge whether or not the plan is better or worse. Objectively speaking, again, there's personal, right? There's personal stuff. There's for you. But generally speaking, the plan does not suck. You cannot say the plan sucks in general if you don't follow it. So here is the thing. This is everything I do is built on this foundation. First, we must remove as much tech, as many programs, as many moving parts as possible as to maximize the system reliability concept, right? The more components we remove, the more reliability we have. And we have to modify our behavior and then the plan. Until our behavior is pretty damn close to perfect, the plan change doesn't matter. Now, we can modify the plan to closely match our behavior. So if we only exercise, if we're supposed to exercise 5 days and we only go 3 consistently, then we should modify the plan to be 3. Like, let's live in reality. That's not the 5-day plan's fault that you couldn't modify your behavior, right? So there's a lot of blame going towards the tech when the reality is it's your behavior that needs to be monitored. So we have a bastardized version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is the most important thing for everything that you want to achieve. Everything. Okay? And it starts, a lot of us are doing really complicated stuff, building really complicated funnels, taking really complicated supplements, doing really complicated diet plans. And the truth is we are way out of sequence. So here is how we need to start something. We need to start where we're at. Okay? So we start where we're at. It's a note right here. We always start where we're at, okay? So, let's say we have a goal. Very, very specific goal. Let's say it's nutrition. 1, am I eating the right amount of food? Well, what about carbs or fat or keto? Doesn't matter, right? I push people back, and you can have a different methodology. I'm not trying to argue about methodologies. It's saying, what is the main thing here? And it's always enough for volume, right? So maybe you want to get better at closing sales, right? Are you taking enough calls? If not, nothing else matters. If you're not eating the right amount of food, nothing else matters, right? If you're not doing videos consistently enough and that's your goal, nothing else. It doesn't matter what you say in your video. It doesn't matter what the background is, right? It always starts with enough. So in weekly sprints, we say, okay, I need to do X amount this week. And if you don't do that amount that week, you don't add anything, you modify your behavior to do that amount that week, period. Nothing else. Don't add system reliability, don't add complication. Until you're doing enough, nothing else matters. Okay? So if you're supposed to exercise 5 days and you only made it 3, the only thing that matters next week is that you get closer to 5. And so maybe you do 4. The only thing that matters a week after that is you get closer to 5. And only when you are consistently doing 5 do we even worry about what kind of exercises you're doing, which would be like balance, right? Or in this case, maybe macronutrients, or what kind of food you eat, right? A lot of us are skipping all of this. So it's really, really important that, boom, we do enough. I do a Facebook video, live video every day. And until I do that, nothing else matters, right? So now we can adjust the plan or the behavior to get aligned, and then we can say, okay, balance. What am I saying in these videos? What kind of content? It's like 50% personal, 50% business, 50% from my phone, 50% from my desktop, right? So you set your balance. Half your live videos now, do them horizontal, okay? Until you are doing both of these things, a video every single day, and you're doing it with the balance that the program calls for, nothing else matters. Doesn't matter what you say in the videos, which might be structure, right? It doesn't matter how many times a day you eat if you can't even get your macros correct, okay? So we're always pushing to get our behavior to match first, the most important thing, second, the second most important thing, and only when we have done that with near 100% consistency do we move up to structure. Okay, now that we can do this every single day in a balanced way, can we do it at the same time? Can we do it in the same sequence? Right? So with nutrition, this might be I eat 3 meals a day, or 4, or 2. It doesn't matter. This isn't about the method. This is about understanding how to modify your behavior the appropriate way. So only when you've done enough of something consistently do you move to balance, and only when you have consistently done enough of something with balance do you move to structure, and only when you've done enough of something with balance and structure consistently. So if you fall off this wagon, you actually bump back down and you go back to focusing on balance. We don't just move straight up and skip the basics, right? So then you have structure. And if you're struggling with structure, you just stay right here. You don't go on to novelty. You just stay at structure until your behavior matches the plan. Okay, and then there's novelty. That's fun stuff. Maybe I want to do some crazy videos. Maybe I want to try to go viral. Maybe I want to try to fit some ice cream into my meal plan. Maybe I want to fit some beer into my meal plan. Maybe I want to try some crazy exercises that I've never tried before. That's novelty. You earn the right to play in novelty when you've consistently, your behavior has consistently done enough with balance and structure for a period of time. Okay, only then do you worry about complicated stuff, complicated funnels, video production, like stealth influence stuff, supplements, like fasting, really complicated stuff that really won't make that big of a difference. Now, here's what's really, really important. You got to start where you're at, right? Any Google Maps knows best. It always starts you where you're at. Do not pick an arbitrary starting point, which means if you're doing one video a day, then you should probably start a plan that is 1 or 2 a day, not 5, right? You work to 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5. If you're at 2,000 calories a day, you start there. You don't start way more or way less. It's going to cause a huge swing. It's going to cause a lot of psychological problems. And every good GPS knows to start you where you're at. Okay? Now, when your behavior is reliable, you could change the plan slightly using this framework. All right, now I've done this enough. Now I can worry about the balance. Okay, now I've done this consistently. I'm comfortable with it. Now I can start to structure it. I just do it at 10 a.m. every day, right? And now I do it 10 a.m. every day. Let me see what happens if I wear a goofy hat on my video. Let me see what happens if I swap out some chicken and rice for some ice cream, right? You earn the right to do novelty stuff because you have a baseline and consistency here. All right, now you must walk through each step and complete them fully. And I'm going to tell you why. It's super, super important. First, we got to get consistency in your behavior. And then we gauge the efficacy of the plan tech, right? So once we are 100%, near 100% consistent in all these things, we can say, you know what? What happens if I exercise this way? What happens if I do this thing? And because your behavior is consistent, we can actually gauge the efficacy of the change you made. Here's the other important thing. You may walk through enough, do a video every day, eat the same number of calories every day, make the same number of sales calls every day, balance, right? Do a certain amount vertical, certain amount horizontal, because every single step adds complication, right? Which decreases reliability and potentially increases stress. So you get a nice little return. You get a baseline, and then you use balance, and you get a nice little return. You lose a little more weight. You feel a little more comfortable. You make a little more money. So you just had to structure it. I'm going to do 10 a.m. every day. I'm going to eat at these times every day. I'm going to take exactly this many sales calls between this time and this time every day. Novelty, I'm going to try this really cool, fun stuff. I'm going to try to eat this ice cream sandwich. I'm going to try to go viral. It's novelty stuff, right? And then you get into complicated stuff. I'm going to produce all my videos and put really fancy captions and calls to action. And I'm going to take all these supplements and, I'm going to fast every other day and complicated stuff like that. Here's the thing. You may realize since you've been through each step, you were happiest and made the most money right here. Yeah, it's totally cool to eat ice cream and be like in great shape, but you actually just like to eat chicken and rice. That's totally cool because you walk through each step, right? You might go, you know what? I made an extra $100 a week by doing complicated videos and it just wasn't worth it. I was more happy here. I was more happy going viral and not worrying about it. So you can only really find your maximum, your personal abundance if you actually walk through each step and then identify, you know what, I was happiest, I had the most life, and I made the most money, and whatever, when I was right at whatever point you were at. It could be down here, maybe enough. Maybe just going live every single day was enjoyable, and it made you enough money. And since you've already been through all these steps, you know for certain this is where you're happiest. Okay, so we have to modify our behavior, not the plan. This is literally the framework I use to identify and reach, every goal, and modify my behavior in every way that I find to be useful to me. Hopefully it's useful to you. That is a top secret framework. I have never shared that outside of a few private clients. And let me know. Drop in the group. Let me know your takeaways.